We're going to talk about career change and what it's like going from agency side to in-house, what it's like even like navigating job change right now and other stuff. Sam recently moved positions. She is a senior manager of SEO at Pipedrive now. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks for having me. So hello, everyone. Super great to be here. Yes, Milwaukee was very cold when I was there. But that just means I have to come back so I can be there in better weather.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, I recently made the switch from owning my own agency to in-house. To say, I think I've lamented over that for like months, I want to say. Took me months to make that decision, but ended up being, so far it's been the right one. So I started with Pipedrive January 5th. And yeah, it definitely has been a change because I've been agency side for over 10 years. I want to say it's close to 15. So now being in-house, there's a lot of things that I'm learning are different and a lot of things that I'm learning are exactly the same. So it's been fun to navigate those new changes and figure out what pace is different, just what are those nuances? And then just also getting used to focusing on a single brand has been refreshing and also interesting because I'm not used to having to getting to focus on one, but then also it means that when I get stuck, it doesn't mean I can switch to another to try to get unstuck. It means I have to work through it. So that's been
for sure. So you said it took you months and months of thinking about the decision to like do it. Like what sorts of things were you thinking about?
So ultimately it came to, for me, it was more about my personal life. So I had a lot of personal changes over the last couple of years, became a single mom. So I'm a single income household where I used to be a dual income household. So the variance of ownership and entrepreneurship really made going in-house a little bit more appealing. And then as I was really going back and forth, I actually had a really good friend of mine who's here in Atlanta. She is also an entrepreneur. And one of the things she said to me was, right now, with what's going on in the economy, everyone that she knows, she is telling them, if you have a chance to go in-house, do it. Because if you're an entrepreneur, you've done it before, you have built a business. If you have to do it, you could do it again. And there was something about that was really comforting to me because I was like, wait, actually, it would be much easier the next time because I've already built relationships. I've already done the networking. So there was something really, like I say, comforting about that, of reminding myself that this change, this opportunity, if I take it and it doesn't work out, it's not forever. It doesn't mean that I'm stuck with this for the rest of my life. Obviously there'd be changes, but nothing is permanent. That's obviously a double-edged sword, but you can always evolve and continue to grow. So at that point I had to ask myself, is this an opportunity then that I would regret not taking? And that ended up being why I took the position, because I was like, you know what, this is one of those opportunities that, again, the stability in being a single mom is really what won me over.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just really being able to say, I'm not going to regret not taking it, if that makes sense.
That's it. Yeah, no, that's really good context. I think that, as someone who runs an agency now, and I've talked to maybe 10 other agency owners in the past week, and like, I can tell you that this year is not fun whatsoever.
No, honestly, the 2024 and 2025, they were not fun. Fortunately, I got to work on a lot of fun projects. What was it? 2023, 2024, they were not fun. 2025 started to pick up, right? But it's still, feast or famine of the small agency life. It's a lot, and it is fun. But after a while, and like I said, just for my personal life, it got to be almost a little bit too much for not having a life partner to help support with those things.
Yep. Yeah, I hear that. There's nights where like I'll stay late and it's only because I have that person that can help with the kids. Yeah, that's a big thing. Okay. So what does your day-to-day actually look like now? And like what's different than, I'm sure it's like way different than owning an agency, but just like the work itself of like agency work versus in-house. How did things change?
So first off, my company is actually based out of Europe. So my days start much earlier. So I actually log on at like 7 a.m. So that looks nice because I used to log in at like 10. So I'd say that's probably one of the first changes that I was like, well, I have to get used to this. But also the day-to-day, I actually put my phone down at night. So that part's actually really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Which I will say, I do know agency owners who are really good at protecting that time. And so hats off to them. I was never very good at it. So if you are an agency owner, you know, do your best to try to protect it for sure. But as far as what it looks like, it's very much the same. We work in Slack. There's lots of comms. We work in tickets. And so it was a lot of what I was doing on behalf of my clients when I was agency side. And now I'm just doing that full time. The work is very much the same of staying up to date, reading a lot of articles, trying to stay up to date, writing a lot of documentation. It's just now all those comms are internal instead of, sending it to different clients and trying to apply it or, just run those kinds of things. As far as the work itself, yeah, honestly, it's about the same kinds of things. It's just all focused on one brand instead of, using the same playbook across different brands. So,
For sure. For sure.
yeah.
And I mean, like, do you find yourself spending less time? Like, if you were mostly project based before, right? Did
Uh,
you have a lot of like recurring, like retainer clients?
we were probably like, well, the agency itself was like 50-50. For what I was doing, I was usually doing special projects because that's just what
Yeah.
my skill set usually lends to. So really fun. I'm not actually having to do any migrations right now because I feel like that's what I was doing all of last year.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that and investigations. So I'd say investigations is just kind of ongoing because we're always trying to dig and figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
So right now it's just building a lot of systems because also just to be super transparent, the SEO department at Pipedrive, the entire leadership team is new. So I'm in charge of tech. There's my counterpart who's in charge of content, and then the
Oh,
head of
cool.
SEO who's in charge of us. All three of us are new. So we're building entire systems and really just kind of redoing the whole thing from top to bottom. A great team under us who has been fantastic, but they haven't had direction for the past year. So it's really just, there's a lot of things of trying to right the ship or just figure out where the ship was,
Mhm.
right? Because when you have a lot of people with no direction, it just ends up going in a lot of different places. So we, like I say, it's been a lot of systems. What I have seen has been really interesting for me is I'm used to coming from agency life of having to justify every dollar or every hour
Yeah.
spent, right? So every line item in the invoice to the client, you've got to defend. So it has been really interesting, like putting together the roadmap and I'm like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And like ready to go of defending why. And like the CMO just being like, that sounds great. How much is it going to cost? Approved. It's like, I don't, hold on. Hold on. I don't need to tell you why. Okay,
That's
cool.
That's a huge struggle. I mean, that's a huge struggle. Yeah. I mean, it's what's like hammered into you. Like when I started agency life, like way back in the day, I had like a larger agency. It was like hammered into me. Like every time you talk to a client, it has to like to reinforce the value of what they pay us. And so like you just learn this defensive way of communicating. That's just like, I imagine it's really hard to let go of.
Yes. And so it's been really refreshing to get the resources, which I also recognize that I am in a unique position in a unique company that we are getting those things that we're asking for.
For
That is not
sure.
in many organizations. So shout out to Pipedrive leadership. Thank you so much. It's been really fun. But also, I will say because of that agency background, it also means that I'm always speaking to what is the end goal at the end of the day, and that is our recurring revenue, signups, customers. So because I guess that's the North Star for every activity. It's why we as a leadership team have never had to go into the huge, well, here's why I want to do it. It's been immediately signed off or pretty immediately, right? Now, legal teams and InfoSec might be a different story. And I'm pretty sure that InfoSec, I might not be their favorite person because I keep asking for access to
Right.
things. They're like, I don't know why you need it. Like, but I want to break things. So that's been probably one of the hardest adjustments for me is not being able to like spin up any tools that I want. So definitely to my fellow in-house peeps who we can't get access to everything. Whew, that's a pain. That is a
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah. I mean, agency side, I struggle with that sometimes, but it's
So,
more so like jumping through the hoops and like being patient
yeah.
while you
Well, like
have,
the only approved LLM is Gemini. No,
ooh,
y'all,
rough.
I need more.
Nothing against Gemini, but I don't prefer that one.
No. Well, that like even for research, like if we want to do entity analysis, Like
Yeah.
I need to be able to go to ChatGPT and say, what do you think about Pipedrive?
Right. Right.
So that's why I say like InfoSec might not like me, and I'm sorry.
So what? So like new team, kind of putting the pieces together here. So you probably didn't have to like have the defensive talk about traffic laws with Pipe Drive leadership, or
Uh,
you have?
we have, yeah.
Okay.
So they got hit pretty hard by 2 algorithm updates last year. Yeah. So, and that's why we've been doing a lot of investigations in this first quarter, because we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
figure out exactly how where is it hurting, which means how are we going to turn it around?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a board of investors, so it's a lot of, we have to explain it to the board. So, there is some of that. Thankfully, we are getting the runway of, they understand that SEO takes time, and there hasn't been leadership in place for over a year, so you cannot expect us to turn it around in 6 weeks, ideally. So we're getting support there. But of course, there's every week is the question of what quick wins are there.
Right.
Like there is we don't expect you to turn around, but also what can you do?
Yep.
It's push and pull.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
On I feel like on the agency side, it's, a lot of educating clients about here, like, here's what SEO can do or can't do, or like what to expect in 2026 versus what you might think happened in 2024. Does that change? Like, does the education piece change with now you're like educating stakeholders, internal stakeholders, instead of clients who like manage the channel internally?
Not really. I'd say that the
Okay.
education piece is staying the same. And I think maybe that's something that's unique to this organization, and or maybe not super unique, but wouldn't be common across all. Because like the team who does all the experimentation on our site and CRO, like they're very interested. So there's a lot of documentation and like who maintains our support. So there is a lot of keeping people up to date on what's going on, and a lot of people have questions. So actually one of the things that I'm really excited about is we're going to start instituting SEO town halls. And maybe I'm
Oh,
a little,
super cool.
because I told one of my team members that we're going to do that, and if she wanted to, she's welcome to be the host of that. And I think she was like, that's bananas, why would I ever want to do that? But I was like, you don't have to, it's just if you want to. I'm like, yeah, put me on the spot, ask me all your SEO questions and see if you can stump me. Yeah, I think the education, and that is one thing that is really nice, that this organization is already bought in. So that's another thing that I have found really interesting. Like being agency side, we were often working with embedded SEO teams. So that was kind of our specialty, was working with companies that had SEOs, but maybe needed more expansion, or they needed the senior level consultants or guardrails for what they were doing. So a lot of times we were spending time putting together the reasoning of why SEO needed investment, or why SEO needed these dev resources and needed the sprint points. So I was kind of expecting to have to do that moving in-house, of just being kind of that SEO advocate across all the channels. And that's, the buy-in is already there. So that's been interesting too, that I don't really have to convince people to care about SEO. And that was surprising to me.
That's cool. So less justification of the work, more alignment. That's awesome. Congrats. That's what feels so good.
It does. It does mean now, though, that I have a lot of people asking me questions of like, well, what
Yeah.
about this? So, it's that level of, I know enough to think that I know what I'm asking.
Right.
Right. Or, yeah. So it's been, which I do enjoy, because it's also forced us as a team to have really good answers, because there are people who know enough to ask questions that maybe it's like, the nuance of this, let's talk about that. Or, hey, or, all of the questions we're getting about traffic from LLMs and AI tools, of course. And it's like, okay, that's still a really low percentage. Let's stop focusing so much on this. So we're doing a lot of those kinds of conversations, of, especially for right now, a lot of optimizing or doing AEO, GEO, AI search, whatever you want to call it. I will say my team, we are all on the same page of doing good SEO is still kind of the foundation for also optimizing for AI search. So we need to get all of that cleaned up and done really well, and we should see the returns in AI search as well.
For sure. What do the investors call it? It's usually I hear GEO most from like boardrooms coming down. Like we always get it from like the CEO, like wants GEO. It's like the new thing, like SEO's done. And they're just like, okay, whatever you want to call it. Like We're not going to argue that.
I don't actually know what the board has been referring to it as. I know my CMO started calling it GEO, and then
Yeah.
I think this was so when my new boss started, and I think this is when I was like, all right, I love working for you. This is going to work out really well, because he was like, no, we're going to call it AI search. That's what we're going to call it. And I was like, I'm in. Yes. Okay. Because that's what I prefer to call it as well. Plus, there was a really interesting study. Oh, who was the person who put it out? Sorry, there was a talk at SEO IRL in Toronto last year, or excuse me, Toronto, for people who actually live there. And they had data showing that basically those who are not in marketing call it AI search.
Hmm.
So like the people that we're trying to sell to, or maybe that was somebody from the CPG industry. But anyways, it was just this whole thing of like, we're the only people who are calling it GEO and AEO. But like the people that we're trying to sell it to, they call it, yeah, so it is. That's
That's what I would think about it. Like, it's like AI search. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
All right. So I want to spend a couple minutes talking about like getting hired in SEO right now. Like last year, if you would have asked this question, everyone would be like, oh, I don't know what next year's going to look like, or like SEO is even going to be a role that's hireable this year. So if someone came to you today and said, no previous experience, like I want to get into SEO. I don't know why they would, but maybe they do. What would you tell them? Like what are the good things? What are the hard things? Like how would you tell them to like get started?
What a great question. And yeah, I feel like anybody who's like, I want to start a career, I'd just be like, "Oop, I don't know what you're going to do. Like I look at my son and I'm like, I don't know how you're going to start a career.
Yeah.
But so I think the biggest things, and we're maturing as an industry. So it's almost like we've got to look at what are some of the other professions. How do you typically get a job in some of those more historical or more aged professions, I guess. And usually the biggest thing comes down to the networking.
Hmm.
Right. I was talking to Nick Leroy the other day, and we were talking about it of I can teach anyone the hard skills all day long, but I cannot teach the soft skills.
100%.
You need to come in with those. So that is one of the first things I would tell people, is make sure you've got those soft skills. Like I do remember the first agency I ever worked at. I was there for 4 years, about 3.5 years longer than I should have. But we all make mistakes when we're young. And it was one of those agencies that hires like straight out of college, and it's an intern run kind of agency. It was definitely the A team sold you, the B team worked on the accounts. Like it was just churning out all kinds of stuff, right?
Hmm.
Which luckily for me meant that I got to train over 200 people over the 4 years that I was there. Um, And it eventually got to a point where when we were talking about we wanted to hire account managers and people who were going to be interacting with clients, I always required you had to have retail or food and beverage experience, because I needed to know that you would be able to deal with someone yelling in your face, which ideally they shouldn't. I'm going to fire them if they do, but like you can handle that. And I think it's those
Hmm.
kinds of things that, obviously not every SEO job means you're going to be an account manager, but it is those types of skills of, can you communicate? Do you know how to tell a story with data? Can you analyze the data? So I would say focusing on those things and really focus on a couple is really important. Now, of course, there are the hard skills of, can you crawl a site? Do you know how to form a page title and a meta description? Starting with the basics. So always starting with Aleda's learningseo.io. Now she's got the Learning
Great
AI,
resource. Yeah.
yeah, resource as well. But then the networking side is find a community to join, right? There's the SEO community by Noah Learner, which is phenomenal and free to join.
Hmm.
They've got the paid memberships if you want to get more out of it, but you do not have to pay to be part of it to get the value out of it. For those who identify as female or non-binary, there's Women in Tech SEO, whom I absolutely adore. They are incredible. Most of the opportunities I've had in my career have come from Women in Tech SEO. So there's just, it's things like that. There's Asians in Search, which is a great community for my fellow Asians. Yeah, there's just all of those. So finding those communities and then figuring out what is kind of the part of SEO that interests you. If it's something, what makes you want to get started in SEO? Like you said, Tyler, like, I don't know why you would. So what is it about it that's drawing you in, and really become the expert in that? I think for any kind of professional career path, I think anybody's going to have to learn how to prompt, right? It's conversations I'm having with my 9-year-old right now of I may not like it, but I think it's going to be a thing that everybody has to know how to prompt if you want a
Hmm.
professional white collar type of job. So that would be the other thing, is just learning how to use the tools, because I don't think we're going to see them go away. I think we're
Hmm.
going to see them evolve, and the landscape may change, but I think the underlying tech won't change. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, it did. The I remember when I first started my first interview, which I ended up getting the job, similar sort of place that you went to, hire people straight out of school. I graduated into a recession. It was really hard. I spent a year looking for a job,
I
but
know
I
that one.
called it SOE in my interview. Still got the job, and I remember the primary question that they asked was, "Did you ever build a website and then like try to do stuff on it?" And I did. And I like that was something that like I played around with in high school and college. And that was like a big skill that like they weren't going to teach me how to build a website, but they just saw it as like, who cares if he calls it SOE? Some things that people might not know about this. So I think mine would be, yeah, soft skills like empathy is probably one like top of the list, like
Yeah.
as far as soft skills go. Um, or at least like really good sympathy that you could like call empathy to someone who
Yes.
doesn't know. Okay, so yes, you did answer the question really well. I think you hit a bunch of things that are valuable. What do you think are things that people are? Well, here's a question. When you were agency side, I would imagine that you were probably more online, like on social networks, are now, like professionally. Is that true?
Uh, I'm on about the same.
Okay. So, I mean, for me, I'm not like on them a ton, but like when I'm just like browsing, obviously like I see stuff and I disagree with it or I agree with it or whatever. Like what do you think people are focusing on right now that someone who's like entry level trying to get into SEO like might be misled by? Like what should they not focus on?
Mm.
Because I think there's so much noise and like obviously SEO is a weird channel because there's no like can't go to school for it. Like you can't like yeah they have classes now at university and like continuing education, but like there's no
Yeah, but if
SEO
there's a
degree.
textbook already out of date.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I do think it's, don't lose sight of the foundations. What I was talking about earlier, of a good SEO strategy does also lead to a good AI strategy. And we've seen it time and time again. And there's more studies. And like, if you follow anything that Lily Ray is doing, that Kevin Indig is publishing, like it just all keeps coming back to that. And I do think that, the foundation of SEO is, and has always been for me, well, it's really three parts. Do we know what people's questions are? Are we answering them? And are we answering them in the way that they expect to receive that answer? Right? Like, how mad did all of us get when recipes included, your biography? So that's what I mean. Like, answer it in the way they expect it to be answered. So I think there's, don't lose sight of that. And I do think that SEO, I've been doing this for 15 years and this has not changed, unfortunately. There's so much fear mongering, there's so much
yeah,
gatekeeping that has been associated with this industry. Um, and it's a real shame, because I think there's also so much good community and so much encouragement, and there's tons of good people in this industry as well. But like the gatekeeping just makes me so mad. So I would say also, anytime someone's telling you anything like you have to do it this way or you're missing out if you don't do this, it's probably not good advice. Unless it's going to say you're missing out if you're not remembering your foundations. I'm seeing all these things about, if you're not doing chunking, if you're not studying your vector embeddings, if you're not doing all these things. Don't get me wrong, I love that stuff. There's a part of me that's thinking about going to grad school for data science, and because I love it. I think it's very cool. But the same, like 5 years ago, we kept perpetuating this lie that you need to know how to code to be a good technical SEO.
hmm,
And you also don't need to understand chunking or all of this stuff to still be a good SEO. You need to understand how to present good content, right? Think about, study your UX principles, because all of that comes through. It doesn't mean that I need to understand exactly how the zeros and ones are going to be understood. So I would say don't get lost in those. Don't get discouraged by it. Yes, there are a lot of cool things happening, like with, there's MCPs, there's all the products that are coming out. But I would say if that's not your bag, if that's not where you get energized and you're not having fun playing with it, you don't have to, right? Let let the people who have fun with it, let them build, let them dream, let them come up with the tools, let them be the early adopters. Don't feel like it means you're falling behind because that's what they do, right? Like Noah Lerner is doing phenomenal stuff. We cannot all be Noah Lerner, right? There is something that makes him special. And I am incredibly jealous of everything that he's getting done, but it doesn't make me less. It doesn't mean that I'm not still good at SEO. And I want people to understand like you are still good at what you are doing if you're just progressing and iterating and growing each day. You do not have to be the early adopter every single time. So yeah, don't feel like you have to be in the hype to stay relevant because that's just not true. There are so many great SEOs who haven't touched any of this and they're still doing fantastic work. And I think about all these SEOs I know who are in fantastic in-house roles and and nobody's ever heard of them. And yet
Mhm.
they're doing incredible work, like I say, and making a ton of money
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
what they do. And they're not making NCPs and it's fine. So yeah. So I think that was a lot, but
I think it's important. I think it's important to discuss that because I think that, there's a lot of pressure. And I don't know of any other industry that is so inconsequential like SEO in the grand scheme of things that has so many people who are like so public facing, just trying to get like their imprint on the world. And like sometimes it does seem like that's the only way to like make it. So I
yeah.
think it's important to reiterate that like you see the same thing too. And like sometimes, I mean, those are the people that I've learned some of the most awesome things from too. Like maybe they are innovating, but they don't need to like tell everyone about it.
Yeah.
Which is
So I
also
want to
cool.
be clear. I love Noah. I'm worried that like the rant came off badly. I think
It
he's doing
didn't.
incredible work. And
Noah's
I
a he.
I'm
Noah's
sorry.
awesome. He's a huge friend of ours too.
Yeah. He's so
Yeah,
cool. And
he
he's
is
so
awesome.
kind. He's
Hmm.
one of the kindest people. And yeah, I like the stuff he's building is so cool. But man, he had like the stuff he's building really sometimes makes me feel like this big.
For sure.
And I have to remind myself, like, no, I'm still doing stuff and it's
You're
okay.
still doing stuff. Yeah, you're doing great. Okay. So there's one more thing on the career part, and then like I think if you have time, like there's just like a couple like hey like you questions. The last one here is just in my mind, it feels like depending on an individual's goal, whether it's to immediately make as much money as possible or learn as much as possible. I would say that it's really hard to find both of those with an entry level role. Like I think you will learn the most probably at an agency that works with a bunch of clients and it's probably a really big culture. And then you have um uh maybe a little better of an agency or a better agency where you probably get paid more but learn less because it's less clients but bigger budgets, and then you have in-house. But like my theory here is that you learn the most in SEO by doing the work. You do the most work by touching the most websites and clients, and solving different types of problems. Do you agree with that? Is that like is that a question that people should ask themselves about like the role that they're looking for right now? Do I need to be in learning mode or do I need to be in making money mode?
Maybe I would say that, but also I would say right now it just feels so tough for everyone. I'm not sure anyone could make the sacrifice of learning mode versus
Mm-hmm.
making ends meet mode,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like even just looking at inflation and at least in the US, right? Like just the amount that we're paying for normal goods
Mm-hmm.
is significantly higher than it was even 10 years ago. I will say, yes, I do think, and maybe I'm incredibly biased and I'll own it. I do think the best experience to be had is agency because you do get to work on so many different clients. You get to work on different tech stacks, different styles, different industries, just all different kinds of challenges. But for sure, in-house is where you typically get a little bit more stability. You have more time to see things to fruition and build systems. So if you are a person who wants to build process, who wants to build more repeatable things, I think that's where in-house is a little bit easier. Because also then you take that and you go other places, like, yeah, because once you build the content workflow here, then you can take that somewhere else. Yeah,
Hmm.
don't buddy's IP, but yeah, if you're looking to build a system and make it repeatable, then that's kind of the in-house route. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
Okay. No, that's good. That's good. I think that's a really interesting take that I never thought of before. That's totally my jam. Maybe I should be in house. All right, I'm going to start applying more. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. The Okay. I mean, I think that's valuable. It's just when I started, when people that I'm closest to started, like there's just it was a different world to like for many different reasons. But like I had no other choice than to take the job with the like a really bad pay and with really bad culture. We didn't even get a lunch break. It
I
was
get that.
awful.
No, so I mean, the first agency I was at, my maternity leave was 3 weeks. So
How?
I didn't get
Okay.
lunch, but I got, yeah. Because it was a small agency, so it was under 50 employees, which means FMLA did not apply.
Huh. Interesting. Our agency is very small and we have good benefits of that. But yeah, it's difficult as an agency owner to like offer that to people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess like let's wrap this by like what are you super excited to solve in 2026? Like whether it's like a small thing like without getting into things that you can't get into, like what sorts of things are you excited to dig into in your role?
So I'm just basically I'm layering in machine learning everywhere that I can
That's cool.
for the company. That's fine. Like I said, I think I'm InfoSec is maybe not my biggest fan because I'm doing it everywhere. But that's just been really fun. And like my content counterpart, she and I are just having a lot of fun figuring out where can we scale things. Because also with Pipedrive, it's fun. We're in 21 different languages, so it's figuring out how do we do all that scaling
That's
across.
cool. Yeah.
So that's been really fun. And then this year, that's what I'll be speaking about for all the various conferences that I'll be showing up at. So yeah, I'm just excited to talk more about machine learning, where it makes sense to include it. So I'll be talking about forecasting, automating internal linking, all that kind of stuff. So should be
Amazing.
fun.
I can't wait to catch one of those. What?
I'll be at Brighton, San Diego. I'll be at SMX Advanced in Berlin. Um, and there's one that's going to be announced. I don't think it's going to be by the night. So,
Okay.
so
So we have
yeah.
to keep our eyes peeled. Where should we follow you to keep up to date with that announcement and others?
So really just on LinkedIn or the SEO community, and then Women in Tech SEO is where you can find me. I'll also be attending all of the Women in Tech SEO conferences this year, so you can find me there. But I'll be volunteering. I won't be speaking. Then yeah, should be fun. Should be a fun year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining and sharing your journey with us.